Hello everyone, we will now talk about the human excretory system. So, first let's discuss what exactly is excretion. Now, excretion is referred to as the elimination of metabolic wastes, that is the waste products which are formed by the metabolic reactions of our body from the animal's body. Why it has to be done? To regulate the composition of the body fluids as well as tissues. So this is the definition of excretion. Now in simpler words, what is the meaning of excretion? The removal of all the waste material that is formed as a result of various type of metabolic reactions which are happening in the body of an organism. Removal of those waste products. Why? Because to regulate the composition of the fluid as well as the tissue of the body. So this process, this removal of the waste product is known as excretion. Now we have to remember this thing that excretion is different from egestion. What is egestion? Egestion is the release of the waste material, that is the undigested or unabsorbed material from the anus. This is known as egestion. Whereas excretion refers to the removal of metabolic waste of the body. So now let's see what all parts form the human excretory system. So this is the picture of a human excretory system. We can have a look over here. And the human excretory system, it consists of a pair of kidneys. You can see these are the two kidneys. Then a pair of ureters. So these tubes are known as the ureters. Then a urinary bladder, one urinary bladder, as well as a urethra. So this is the urethra which is draining out the waste material out of the body. So these parts form the human excretory system. Now we will talk about kidneys as well as the structures which are present inside the kidney in detail in the subsequent part of this video. But now let's start discussing with ureters first of all. So what exactly are ureters? You can have a look. This is a picture of ureters. So these are the two kidneys and these tubes which start from here and they drain their content inside the bladder. These two tubes are known as the ureters. So let's see. They are, as I told, two thick tubes which act to transport the urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. So the only function of ureters is the conduction of urine from the kidneys to the bladder. Now each of this urethra is around 25 centimeters long and they are situated bilaterally, that is each ureter is draining one of the kidney. So you can have a look over here. Now the length of each of this ureter is around 25 centimeters. Each ureter is draining the urine from one respective kidney and it is draining the content inside the urinary bladder. So this ureter is bringing the urine from here and this ureter is bringing the urine from this kidney. Now these ureters, they are situated bilaterally. Bilaterally as in one on each side of the axis of the body. So now we have come to know that the function of ureters is to drain the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. And how do they do this? Ureters do this by the help of peristalsis. So what is peristalsis? Alternate contraction, relaxation of the tubes, of the muscles of the ureters which drain the urine from the kidney to the bladder. And this peristaltic movement itself, it checks any regurgitation of the urine, that is the backflow of urine, right? The backflow of urine into the kidneys. This is also checked by the help of the peristaltic movements which are undergoing by the muscles of the ureters. So this is something about ureters that we had to discuss. Now let's talk about the urinary bladder. So this is a picture of a urinary bladder. We can have a look at it. This is the whole urinary bladder and you can see these are the two ureters which are draining inside the urinary bladder. They are opening from here. The opening of the ureters is over here. So as you can see, a urinary bladder is a pear-shaped structure. It is hollow. structure. It is a muscular sac-like structure. And the prime important function of urinary bladder is to store the urine till it is released from the body. Now, the urinary bladder is having a muscular layer. These muscles are known as detrusor muscles. These muscular layer is able to help in contraction as well as relaxation of the urinary bladder, so that it is able to store more amount of urine and then it is able to contract for the release of the urine. So the muscles present over here are detrusor muscles, and obviously they are smooth muscles. That means they are not under the control of body's will. Then the urinary bladder is also covered by transitional epithelium. This is a special type of epithelium which is again having the property to stretch when and where required and to come back to its original position. So transitional epithelium is the standard property of urinary bladder. Then, as I told, the standard function of urinary bladder is to store the urine inside. We can also see here there are the modified smooth muscles which act as the internal sphincter, internal urethral sphincter. This internal urethral sphincter is modified smooth muscles. They are obviously not under the control of body's will, and they are the one who check the movement of urine out of the urinary bladder. They are under the influence of the spinal reflex. Whereas there is another set of modified skeletal muscles, and these are known as the external urethral sphincter. This is under the control of the body's will. Why? Because they are made up of the skeletal muscles. And this is under the influence of the cerebral reflex of the body. So both of these sphincters, they check the flow of urine out from the urinary bladder. Along with this, we can also see there are some folds inside the urinary bladder. You can see there are these folds of the inner lining. These folds are known as rugae. And there is also this triangular type of structure that we can see over here. This triangle that is made over here. This is known as the trigone of the urinary bladder. So trigone of the urinary bladder is made up of 3 openings. What are these 3 openings? The 2 openings from the ureters and 1 opening through which the urinary bladder opens into the urethra. So this forms a trigone of the urinary bladder. So this is all about urinary bladder. We know on an average around 800 to 900 ml of urine can be stored inside the urinary bladder, and we start getting an urge of urination, that is micturition, around when the bladder is around half filled. So when the bladder is half filled, we start getting the urge, whereas the complete volume of urine that the bladder can store is around 700 to 800 ml. So this was all about the bladder. Now we can see the bladder is going to give its content, that is the urine, into the urethra. So this tube is the urethra. Now let's study more about urethra. We can see this is a diagram showing the male urethra. So this is the whole urinary bladder, and this tube is the urethra. In the males, the urethra is present inside the penis. So what is urethra? It is a fibromuscular tube that begins at the lower opening of the bladder, and it extends through the pelvic muscles as well as through the urinogenital diaphragms to the outside of the body. And the urethra, it opens to the outside of the body by the help of an opening, and this opening is known as the urethral orifice, external urethral orifice. So what is the function of urethra? The function of urethra is to conduct the urine from the urinary bladder to the external of the body. In the case of males, you can have a look over here. In the case of males, the urethra is comparatively much longer, and it is present inside the male copulatory organ that is known as penis. Whereas in the case of females, the urethra is not comparatively much longer, it is comparatively much shorter, and it is also again by the help of urethral external orifice, it is going to release the contents outside the body. So this is about the ureters, urinary bladder as well as urethra.
To buy these books, you can go to www.cengage.co.in, or you can also find the links in the video description given below. Thank you.